Chapter 6 I hold that when a person dies, his soul returns again to earth, arrayed in some new flesh disguise, another mother gives him birth. With sturdier limbs and brighter brain, the old soul takes the road again. John Masefield. Pedro returned to the office 1 week later for his second appointment. Grief still tormented him, robbing him of simpler pleasures and interfering with his sleep. He began by telling me about an unusual dream he had dreamt twice in the past week. I was dreaming about something else when all of a sudden an older woman appeared, Pedro explained. Did you recognize the woman? I asked. No, he answered immediately. She appeared to be in her 60s or 70s. She wore a beautiful white dress, but she was not at peace. Her face was anguished. She reached out to me, and she kept repeating the same words. What did she say? Hold her hand. Hold her hand. You will know. Reach out to her. Hold her hand. That is what she said. Hold whose hand? I don't know. She just said, hold her hand. Was there anything more in the dream? Not really. But I did notice that she was holding a white feather in one hand. What does that mean? I asked. You're the doctor, Pedro reminded me. Yes, I thought. I'm the doctor. I knew that symbols could mean almost anything, depending on the unique experiences of the dreamer as well as the universal archetypes described by Carl Jung or the popular symbols of Sigmund Freud. This dream, somehow, did not feel Freudian. I responded to the, you're the doctor, comment and its implied need to be answered. I'm not sure, I answered truthfully. It could mean a lot of things. The white feather could symbolize peace or a spiritual state or many other things. We will have to explore the dream, I added, relegating its interpretation to the future. I had the dream again last night, Pedro said. Same woman. Same woman, same words, same feather, Pedro clarified. Hold her hand. Hold her hand. Reach out to her. Hold her hand. Perhaps the answers will come during the regressions, I suggested. Are you ready? He nodded, and we began. I already knew that Pedro could reach a deep level of hypnosis because I had checked his eyes. The ability to roll the eyes upward, trying to look at the top of the head, and then to allow the eyelids to slowly flutter down while keeping the eyes gazing upward is highly correlated with the ability to be deeply hypnotized. I measure how much of the sclera, or white part of the eye, is showing when the eye reaches its apex. I also observe how much white is showing while the eyelids slowly close. The more white showing, the deeper the person can go. Pedro's eyes had nearly disappeared into his head when I tested him. Only the tiniest part of the bottom rim of his iris, the colored part of the eye, remained. As his eyelids fluttered closed, the iris did not descend at all. He could reach a deep trance state. I was mildly surprised, then, when Pedro found it difficult to relax. Since the eye roll test measured the physical ability to relax deeply and to reach profound levels of hypnosis, I knew his mind was interfering. Sometimes patients who are used to being in control have some initial reluctance to just let go. Just relax, I advised him. Don't worry about what comes into your mind. It doesn't matter if you experience anything today or not. This is practice, I added, trying to remove any pressure he was feeling. I knew he desperately wanted to find his brother. As I talked, Pedro relaxed more and more. He began to enter a deeper level. His breathing slowed, and his muscles softened. He appeared to sink even deeper into the white leather recliner. His eyes moved slowly under his closed eyelids as he began to visualize images. I took him slowly back in time. At first, just go back and remember the last pleasant meal that you have eaten. Use all of your senses. Remember completely. See who was there with you. Remember your feelings, I instructed. He did this, but he remembered several meals, not just one. He was still trying to maintain control. Relax even deeper, I urged. Hypnosis is only a form of focused concentration. You never give up control. You are always in charge. All hypnosis is self-hypnosis. His breathing deepened even more. You are always in control, I told him. If you ever get anxious while having a memory or experience, you can just float above it and watch from a distance, like watching a movie. Or you can leave the scene entirely and go anywhere you want, visualize the beach, or your house, or any other safe place for you. If you're very uncomfortable, you can even open your eyes and you'll be awake and alert back here, if you wish. This is not Star Trek, one added. You don't get beamed anywhere. These are only memories, like any other memories, just like you remembered the pleasant meals. You are always in control. Now he let go. I took him back to his childhood and Pedro smiled broadly. I can see the dogs and horses on the farm, he told me. His family owned a farm a few hours outside the city, and many happy weekends and vacations were spent there. The family was together. His brother was alive, vibrant, laughing. I remained silent for a few moments, letting Pedro enjoy more of this childhood memory. Are you ready to go even further back? I asked. Yes. Good. Let us see if you can remember anything from a past life. I counted backward from 5 to 1 as Pedro visualized himself walking through a magnificent door into another time and another place, into a past lifetime. As soon as I reached the number 1, I saw his eyes fluttering wildly. He was instantly alarmed. He started to sob. It's terrible, terrible, he gasped. They're all killed. They're all dead. The remains of bodies were strewn everywhere. Fire had destroyed the village, with its odd rounded tents. Only one tent remained intact, standing incongruously on the periphery of the carnage and destruction. Its colored flags and large white feathers fluttered wildly in the cold sunlight. The horses, the cattle, and the oxen were gone. It was apparent that nobody had survived this massacre. The cowards from the east had done this. No wall, no warlords will protect them from me, Pedro vowed. Revenge would have to come later. He was numbed, hopeless, devastated. I have learned over the years that people in their first regression often gravitate to the most traumatic event in a lifetime. This occurs because the emotion of the trauma is so strongly impressed upon their psyches and carried by the soul into future incarnations. I wanted to know more. What preceded this horrific experience? What happened afterward? Go back in time within that lifetime, I urged. Go back to happier times. What do you remember? There are many years. Tense. We are powerful people, he answered. I am happy here. Pedro described a nomadic people who hunted and raised cattle. His parents were leaders, and he was a strong and skilled horseman and hunter. The horses are very swift. They are small with large tails, he said. He married the most beautiful girl of his people, one with whom he had played as a child and whom he had loved as long as he could remember. He could have married the daughter of a neighboring chief, but he married for love. What is the name of this land? I asked. He hesitated. I think you call it Mongolia. I knew that Mongolia probably had a very different name when Pedro was there. The language was completely different. So how could Pedro, speaking from that time, know the word Mongolia? Because he was remembering, his memories were being filtered through his present-day mind. The process is similar to watching a movie. The present-day mind is very much aware, watching and commenting. The mind compares the movie's characters and themes with those of the current life. The patient is the movie's observer, its critic, and its star, all at the same time. The patient is able to use his present-day knowledge of history and geography to help date and locate places and events. Throughout the movie he can remain in the deeply hypnotized state. Pedro could vividly remember the Mongolia that existed many centuries ago, yet he could speak English and answer my questions while remembering. Do you know your name? Again, he hesitated. No, it does not come to me. There was little else. He had a child, and the birth was a great happiness not only to Pedro and his wife but also to his parents and the rest of the people. His wife's parents had both died several years before the marriage, so she was not only a wife to him but also a daughter to his parents. Pedro was exhausted. He did not want to return to the devastated village to once again confront the remains of his shattered life, so I awakened him. When a memory from a past life is traumatic and overflowing with emotion, it can be very useful to go back a second time, and perhaps a third. At each repetition, the negative emotion is lessened and the patient remembers even more. He also learns more, as the emotional blocks and distractions are diminished. I knew Pedro had more to learn from this ancient life. Pedro was giving himself another 2 or 3 months to resolve his personal and business affairs in Miami. We still had plenty of time to explore the Mongolian lifetime in more detail. We had time to explore other lifetimes as well. We had not yet found his brother. Instead, he had found another devastating series of losses: beloved wife, child, parents, community. Was I helping him or was I adding even more to his burden? Only time would tell. After one of my workshops, a participant told me a marvelous story. From the time she was a little girl, if she let her hand hang over the side of her bed, another hand would lovingly take hers, and she would be reassured no matter how anxious she was feeling. Oftentimes, when her hand accidentally went over the bedside and the grasp surprised her, she would reflexively jerk back her hand, and this always broke the embrace. She always knew when to reach for the hand and to feel comforted. There was, of course, no physical form under her bed. As she grew older, the hand remained. She married but never told her husband about this experience because it seemed so childlike. When she became pregnant with her first child, the hand disappeared. She missed her loving and familiar companion. There was no hand to take hers in that same loving way. Her baby was born, a beautiful daughter. A little while after the birth, while lying in bed together, the baby took her hand. A sudden and powerful recognition of that old familiar feeling flooded her mind and her body. Her protector had returned. She cried with happiness and felt a great surge of love and a connection that she knew existed far beyond the physical.